welcome to day 22 of Witchtober. So I decided as we get close to the end here, there was a couple tag videos I wanted to do. Had I planned more ahead, maybe I would have spaced them out, but whatever. This is one of the 3 tags I wanted to do. I might have done it in the past, but sometimes I feel like when you revisit them, you get different answers because like you change as a person. So here we are. This is an old tag because of course it is. That's how I roll. There's not really like newer ones that I found, so I just typed in like witchy tags and this is one that pulled up. So what's your craft tag? And I will post the video that I found it from in the description for this one. And that one was nice. It does have a Google Doc that has all of the questions in their description. And there's a lot of questions. There's like 30, so let's just jump in. So question 1, which I probably won't continue to say the numbers because in order to see the questions, you can't see where the little thing is. Anyways, nobody cares. But when and or how did you first know you were a witch? So I think, looking back, I was, as many people say, I was always more witchy inclined. I loved nature. I always felt more connected to nature. I never really felt super great going into like a church setting. I've only gone a couple of times anyways, and it was never like, wow, this is so welcoming, versus like just sitting on a hillside or a mountainside, just existing on a warm summer day. And just like the breeze and the smell of the like juniper trees and just being, it was so much better. And the idea of like, you know, this exact spot where I'm sitting once had like a village that would live here, like a tribe used to live here, and like you can still find like scraps and actual arrowheads and different things. And it's like, oh my god, and like, you know, kind of roughly which, I think it was like 2 tribes that tended to be in that area like 700 years ago. And so it's like I was more intrigued with that concept than anything I heard about from like the Christian children that I grew up with. I was more like nature, dude. Nature hands down. And like I loved, like I became hyper focused on Spirit, Stanley and Cimarron. That show, oh my god, it was a hyper focus for years. And I always loved the idea. And it's like just little things like that where it's like more not other religions inclined kind of led me towards that, and my serious obsession with Halloween. And you know, I had a lot, but the time that I actually knew that I was a witch, it was a choice. I feel like you always have free will, so I didn't like be like, oh well, I always was a witch. Like it's like I was more inclined. But I officially claimed the title. I guess for witch it was more 2015-ish, 2016 is when I really was like, witch is the one. Before it was more Wiccan, and now I wouldn't use that term, so I guess maybe somewhere around there-ish. It's been a while, but I'm really over-guessing these questions, aren't I? How long have I been practicing? That kind of leads to that same question. I've been doing Wicca and witchcraft and modern paganism since 2009, so yeah. 15 years ago. My witchhood can get their learner's permit now, just to give context. It's a long time. Actually, more years have passed since I started in the craft than when I had started. Like the timeline of like birth to became introduced into Wicca, and from that point to now, this timeline's longer now, and that's a weird experience to be like, I'm old. What kind of a witch are you? That's a good question, because most of the time I just stick with just straight up witch. I have described it in my book Path of a Witch, but basically I go with, if I'm gonna have a really long label, neo-pagan, eclectic, solitary witch, because I'm a firm believer in the neo part of neo-pagan, because I don't give a flying fuck what the ancestors did, to be honest. They had a lot wrong and I like modern ethics and modern things that we do, so I don't really need to like put them on like such a pedestal that a lot of people do. I don't think the ancients had it completely right, to be honest. We're a lot closer nowadays of like, oh my god, maybe we should treat everyone equal. Wild. And like animals, we should maybe not abuse them, because I don't care what you say, an animal cannot give consent to be sacrificed. No, if you're gonna do that, just stick with a human that can actually give consent. But we wouldn't do that, would we? Don't do it with animals. You know, there's a lot of things that the ancestors did that I just, no. So anyways, Neo, let's go with a modern approach towards the ancient gods, and also modern approaches to the gods as well. I feel like that's fine. And then eclectic, I do whatever I want. Like, I think it's perfectly fine to pick and choose through different things, just like you would for your diet. You pick and choose from different cultures and different ways in which you would combine spices and various food groups to make wonderful dishes. That's kind of how I approach my craft, of just like, whatever. Like I just pick random stuff and I just roll with it. Solitary, I have yet to find a good community. I would love to one day, but that has not happened. So solitary it is forever. And then witch is just like my approach. Like that's the methodology that I like to use the most. Oh my lord, I feel like this counted to the next one too. What path / tradition do you follow? I answered that. We got that. I write books on it. You can read my books of my exact thing of chaos. Is your craft devotional or secular? How do you incorporate your faith into your craft if you do? To be 100% honest, I'm very intrigued, and I would love somebody to explain it to me like I am a toddler, how you differentiate for secular versus faith. Because like coming from like an atheist background, like to me those are one and the same. I don't know how you could have it any other way. Like, how can you believe in magic and believe in things that you cannot prove with science, and then also say that you don't have faith in things? Like, what? I don't know how that works out at all. Like, not in like a judgmental way. Like, genuinely, I don't know how you wrap that without it just being a faith-based thing. Like, you have to believe that it's not something proved by science. And like, you can't twist the science to make it work either. Like, true actual science, that's not how magic works. I don't know. The only thing I think is like, if you were a secular witch, as in you didn't include any of the divine or deities, so maybe like the elements would be a higher status in that case. I don't know how that would work. I don't know, I'm posing the question right back at you. Moving along to the next question, we have got, are you a closeted witch or in the open? If so, how do your friends and or family feel about your path? So I write witchcraft books. I have a witchcraft YouTube channel. I wear witchy jewelry on the regular. I don't think that's something a closeted witch would be able to do. So I will say that I'm a little more careful when I talk about it. Mostly like for instance, for the most part, everyone that knows me knows I'm a witch, and for the most part they just kind of like don't care like at all. And so, because like it's growing up with mostly atheist and agnostic households, and like even if they are Christian, like there's not a lot of them that really go to church on the regular or anything, and so like they just don't care at all. And so the only time that it really comes up anymore, and like at places I've worked, I've been very open about it, but nowadays, like when I go to like open houses just to see like layouts of houses mostly, like I don't necessarily disclose that I'm a witch because like, you know, it's an awkward conversation, and like obviously we're in like not the financial place to be like buying a new house or like getting a house built or anything, but I don't want to potentially burn bridges in the like real estate field. And so I feel weird when they ask like, oh, well, what do you do for work? And you're like, oh, I'm an author. What do you write? That's like the initial next thing. And then like I kind of do the bad thing of like, I just like really downplay what I do. That's terrible for marketing. I should really like boost my sales to be like, look, it's wonderful, it's great. But like realistically, you know, with those people, I'm more comfortable telling them like my fiction work, because like I'm already prepared for like the like, oh, because you know what, like fiction authors can get away with weird stuff. We're the home state for Brandon Sanderson. Like, we're aware authors can write weird stuff, right? And so it's like, oh, well, you know, because then you can sound very particular of like, oh, well, I've tried YA fantasy and I've tried urban fiction and slice of life, and now I'm kind of trying out cozy mystery because that's really what's trending. And, you know, you can feel very like, you know, official and like professional and stuff. And then and the thing is that those don't sell for diddly squat of anything. And in fact, it's my witchcraft books that sell. And so it's like, I feel weird going up to somebody and being like, oh yeah, I'm a witchcraft author in Utah. that's like opening that can of worms, and they're just gonna go everywhere, and it's just, I usually downplay it. I probably shouldn't. I should probably do better about that and like let them know, but also I'm like, it's a big conversation. Like it's probably bad on my part, but I feel like it's a very easy way to assume 99% of these people are going to be heavily Mormon, and typically they aren't the most accepting of other religions, and I have not had great experiences with them and accepting my religion, so I just try not to talk about it. But I feel like as I kind of, I don't know, it's like a project. It's an ongoing project, because I do want to like get to a place where I can feel confident being like, hell yeah, I'm a witchcraft author, bitches. Read my books. You don't know what it is? I have a book for that. Like, you know, and I want to get to that point. So it's a I'm working on it situation. All right, so next is, am I solitary or do I have a coven? I already answered that. I would love to have a group. I have not found one yet. Is there something you wish someone had told you, or something you wish you knew when you first started? I feel like I don't know, I kind of like my journey. I wish maybe I would have just stuck with one form of study and like really completed a full year and a day. But like, I don't know that I would actually want to do it any other way. I kind of like my chaos learning of just like randomly jumping around to find information and then just go with it. Because I really didn't have that much bad advice when I started. Maybe just like be more confident in like being solitary, but also like I learned valuable things from the other things that I had learned, you know, like going through the different coven experiences and different classes, like I learned things. So I don't know. I'm terrible at this. What resource was most valuable for you beginning, what in the sentence? What resource was most valuable for your beginning practice? What about now? YouTube was my #1 because there was a good community here. It was all ages and all ranges of skills, just chit-chatting, very casual. People were just coming around and hanging out, and kind of consistently hanging out too. And nowadays that I haven't found that really. I don't have like a strong like witchy sense of a community anymore like it used to be. And so nowadays, because that's where I got all of my information, anything for magic of any kind, YouTube was my main source. Nowadays it's more hardcore UPG, because like I'm a really firm believer everything was made up at some point anyway, so like it doesn't matter. And also books. Like I read a lot of books nowadays more than anything else. What was your first spell? Was it successful? I believe my first like legit actual like counted it as a spell was a love spell. It worked kinda, but like not really. It worked, but then of course you get the backlash of that spell. And honestly, I think in the scope of things, it was, I think the universe, honestly, like we give like so much credit to the ability of humans to do stuff, but I feel like the gods sometimes like let you fuck up just to watch it like crash and burn. And like depending on like how confident you are and like how much like living you've had in this lifetime depends on how much they're gonna like let it just keep burning before they like rescue you out of the situation you caused for yourself. And yeah, I feel like I did that spell. It worked. It was a bad idea. I don't recommend it. But I mean, again, it's one of those like, nowadays I would never. But we didn't have as big of a discussion back then on consent. I feel like just as a society as a whole, we've really pushed that substantially. And in the witchcraft community, we've been doing that a lot too. That wasn't as big of a thing in 2009 for teenagers, like at all. And so, yeah, it worked. It wasn't great. But I mean, now I'm happily married, and the guy that I had done that spell, and it, you know, it worked, but then it didn't substantially. He's now dead, so that happens, life happens. And no, I didn't cause that. It's a long story. What do you do when you feel out of touch with your craft? I just did a video on that. It is currently rendering over there at my laptop, so if you're in a witchy slump, I just did a video. Should have been like, I think, was it literally yesterday for you? Might have been yesterday for you. Today's like the 12th. That I'm recording this, so I think the 21st was the witchy slumps day, so I think I already talked about it. Have you ever doubted your faith or ability? Yes. I went through a pretty intense and severe case of like a witchcraft spiritual crisis. Unfortunately, there really is not a lot of resources for like, there's a difference between slump and crisis, and I was in crisis mode, and that's one of my big pet peeves with our community that still to this day bothers me, that you can't get help for that unless you pay people money. That really bothers me a lot. And so I've been struggling with it substantially for about 1.5 years now. It started like June of last year, and I just had, and I think some of it comes down to the fact that like, I love to think that I don't get influenced, but I do. And I got influenced by a lot more of the manifestation crowd, and that was a bad thing, and it wrecked my entire practice. And now I'm building it back up from the foundations, but like it was probably a good thing, but it really sucked. And so like, yeah, I've been there. I've been at the crisis point of like, and it's still a rocky ground at times, of like my relationship with the divine. Like I still believe they exist, but do they give a fuck about humans? Don't know for certain on that one. And like the power of magic and how much does it really influence, and how much of it is just stacking your odds a little bit more in your favor for a lot of work, you know, like that's, I'm still struggling with it, but like, I'm kind of hitting the point of like, you know what, like placebo has an amazing effect, and maybe that's just what I gotta just roll with, that it's just a placebo effect, and it'll work, and it'll be fine. I feel like once I can get the magical thing that I'm working towards, that I've been doing for fucking ever, finally works, then I can get out of this crisis. But until that happens, I feel like I'm still just a little nugget in there of like, why? Because when your spell doesn't work and it continues to not work, and it's not even moving the like needle at all really in the direction you're aiming toward, you're like, why? You get a little slumped, and then you kind of spiral into, does any of it matter? And I think some of us who are more predisposed to that kind of thinking also struggle with that a lot, because yeah. What are some grounding techniques that you find work for you? I have found I have a few, but my main big one is like breathing, which is so generic, but also like I usually try and connect back into the elements. That's a good one. But I mean, realistically, like when I'm very anxious, I tend to, like, whatever the big emotion is that I'm dealing with, I find the opposite and a way to like deal with it. So when I'm very anxious, the opposite of that anxious, very like in your head energy for me is more like, ironically, fire. I need to burn off that energy because it's going to suffocate me. So I need to burn it off. And that means physically like get your heart rate up, go do a workout. I would say walk, but that lets me spiral too much. If you do a workout, you can't think because you got to pay attention to what you're doing. And so that kind of helps. And then like if I'm very depressed, I also have to make myself move. But it's more like I'll, you know, when I'm like really depressed and I just don't want to do anything, I pick small little like cleaning projects and stuff. And that slowly gets me out of that, and that to me is like a grounding way. I'm probably really overthinking these, aren't I? And bringing way more of the mundane life into it. What is your biggest pet peeve in the magical community? Listen, I already talked about it, but I still think it's my #1 reigning is money. I'm so tired of how much money is a requirement for a community. Any ritual, any spell, any community, you have a, like, there's a gatekeeping with money. You have to pay for ritual, you have to pay for readings, you have to pay for counseling, you have to pay for any kind of community to show up. Otherwise, you're alone. And that bothers me, because like, what's the point of a community if you have to pay to be there? Especially for a religion, that one just really bothers me. What is your biggest spell disaster? I think the one that broke my craft last June in 2023, that one really is messing me up. Like it rocked and dismantled my entire belief system, which was probably a good thing, but like, it sucks. It really sucks to have to rebuild your belief systems and your core beliefs. Like, think of Inside Out 2, like you gotta build a new stem, basically. And that takes a long time, and it's a lot of work, and I don't like it. What is your view on black magic? I am team, if you wouldn't do it with a mundane method, you shouldn't do it with a magic method. So if you want to get revenge on somebody, but you wouldn't go and like shoot them or stab them or rob them or beat the crap out of them probably don't try and do that with your magic either. But also on the same front, like if somebody was coming into my house as a burglar, I wouldn't be opposed to defending my home. And like, you know, I don't know, I'm very big on like consent for a lot of things. So like I'm very big in consent on all fronts in my regular life, so I am in magic. But again, mostly it comes down to like protection. Like I would never want to try and do, like, granted I'm married, but like if I wanted to fall in love with somebody, I would want it to be a genuine connection, not because I tried to influence them, which, you know, it would be like trying to catfish them in real life, but you're trying to do it with magic to convince them to come over to you. Like that's just ick. Just don't do it. Try and be a good person, and, you know, like if you want justice, do a justice spell and leave it up to the universe to make those things happen. I gotta hurry this up because my camera's gonna overheat. Is witchcraft an everyday thing, or is it only for special occasions? I do magic so much, it is just woven into my daily life. Like when I went through my crisis, I had this moment to realize that like if I didn't have magic involved in everything in my life, literally none of my physical belongings would matter, because it is so interwoven into everything. The sheet color I have, the designs I have hung up, the color of my walls, like all of my decor, my books, everything in my life is set up under the veil of witchcraft. So it is an everyday constant. Do you meditate? I do. I should do it more. I've gotten better. I'm down to like 5 days a week, so we're getting there. Not every day, but I try. Do you practice divination? If so, what techniques? I am currently going through my oracle deck because it's that time of the year. And so I usually do oracle from like Samhain to Yule. That's like my oracle deck time. So I'm doing my Halloween oracle right now. Then I'll do my one from the Earth Magic deck. That I think it's by Stephen Farmer, I think. And I do that at every Yule, and I have since I got that deck like a decade ago. So like I do that. And maybe next year I'm gonna try and do more with the tarot. But I mostly just do it as like a quick little check-in of sorts, and that's it. Moon phases, planetary correspondences, days of the week, hour, relevant or key? It's sort of like if you're baking or you're cooking and it's like, do you need to add this? You don't necessarily have to. You know, any dish you can always substitute or just leave it out. That's how I look at magic. Spell language. Do you like it simple? Do you dress it up? Is it poetry? Is it silent? I don't know what you would call me right now, but I'm very much just practical bitch. Like I find that if the deities need me to speak in rhyme and need me to like have these very eloquently said things and like really elaborate stuff, like they ain't for me. I need simple and just like live where we're at. And I feel like they appreciate the honesty more than flowery poetry words. Do you keep a book of shadows? I do. I talk about it all the time. I have an ebook, and I'll be making a physical one hopefully next year with all that stuff. Do you have an altar? Is it dedicated to any specific deity, season, anything? I do. I have a working altar. I have the deities I'm currently working with. I have my deck with my current card pulled, my ongoing spells, and the book I'm learning from right now, and my spot for offerings. And then I also have a permanent ancestor altar, and I have this one that I haven't decided what I'm doing with yet. So I got a lot. Thoughts on the afterlife? I'm gonna make this so cheesy and totally against the whole money thing. Buy my book. I have a whole book on it. The Death Journey. I always link it below. All of my thoughts on death and how to handle it as a witch in a book. Would you / do you teach witchcraft and practice witchcraft to your children? Oh, I guess it's a little different because I do teach it. I write books on it. I do plan to raise my little witchlings at some point when I can get them. Do you have a totem animal? If so, what is it? I feel like we stopped using that term by now, but I do kinda, because you have to in STOW. I don't use it that frequently though. What are some witch books that have influenced you? I talked about my top 5. Anything by Scott Cunningham has been really good, and you know, I've had some that have changed me for the worse because they're just so bad. Again, the one, it's like my most popular video. Getting thread from a corpse is pretty awful. You know, there's a lot. I have a lot. Tools, handmade, natural materials. I only need my will. Anything works if I want to use it. Simple. I like candles because they're easy. I don't ever really use my wand or my athame. Sometimes I use my broom. My cauldron I use pretty frequently. I already kind of talked about that. Do you have a magical name? I do. I never use it. Ever, actually. Like, I'm still trying to get used to my married name and it's been 2 years. So like I don't need to add another one to the mix. And then lastly, oh God, there's a lot. This is terrible. Why do you have such a long last question when my camera's gonna overheat? Okay, favorite season, autumn. It's my favorite right now. Herb, I don't know. I don't do much with herbs. I guess probably lavender. Crystal, probably clear quartz. Rune, oh, that's a good one. I don't know. I use Radiho the most because I protect my vehicles with it. And the one for Thor, so Thrasus, I guess. But I mean, if Feihu would love to bless my life, I would not be opposed. Tarot card, I don't know. I guess, I don't know them well enough. I would say like the Fool because that's like the one I know the most. Symbol, sigil, I love the pentacle. All right, I made it through. My camera's gonna overheat. And so yeah, these are long. So hopefully you enjoyed this. I know it's an older tag. And yeah, so anyways, I would love to know your answers in the comments below or do a video response. Make sure to tag me. A huge thank you to my patrons. If you would like to support me and get access to exclusive content, patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Till next time, I don't know when it's gonna cut out, so it's going too soon. So anyways, till next time, blessed be.